Okay, so here is how you break a play down into beats and how you define actions and elevator phrases. This play we're looking at is written by Aaron Smart. At the time of this writing, he was a Lane Community College student. The name of the play is Pretty Bird. And the character we're going to look at is Dad. So, let me clarify here that everybody works with beats and actions and even elevator phrases a little bit differently. Perhaps. Basically, a beat is whenever you have a change of action. It's often precipitated by receiving new information. A topic change is not a beat change, but a topic change could bring about a beat change. Whenever someone enters or exits a room, it's probably a beat change. But if we're doing this, if you're analyzing a scene for an acting class, you probably don't have people entering and exiting. Now, so when you're out working on your own and when you're working with other people, you can do whatever you want, but this is what I want you to turn in if you're in one of my acting classes, if that's why you're watching this video. So I want your script to look like this. You can't really tell by the quality of the copy here, but I actually have written in pen. I only did that so it would show up better in the copy. All the stuff you see written here, which should be written on your script, should be written in pencil because it's probably going to change. As you rehearse, if your actions change, if you move a beat change, that's fine. That means you're making progress. But this is what you start with. If you don't do this homework first, you're going to waste a lot of time once you get up on your feet. So, Dad's super objective, and that's probably, sorry about that stupid thing that appears when I put my mouse up there. Dad's super objective is to reconnect with his son. The super objective is something that you might not be able to define until after you've done the scene evaluation analysis. If you're doing a whole play, this is a 10-minute play. This is the whole play we're looking at here. Obviously, most of your scenes are probably coming from a longer play, and therefore the super objective will come from everything you know about the character in the play. But and sometimes the super objective, it's debatable on how important that is. But if you're in my classes, you should define one. It's a good exercise. The thing about the super objective is also referred to as a spine. It's what holds your character's character together. So it's just a good thing to be able to refer back to. So let's look at this specifically, and there may be other things I'll throw in along the way. And I may have to do this in more than one video because I'm only allowed 15 minutes at a time in this program I'm using. So here we have, in this column over here, on this side of the page, we've got the actions, and over here we have elevator phrases, and these slash marks are when a beat change occurs. These other little verbs that are written in here, they are referred to as tools. You will know that from the practical handbook if you read that. But they're helping the verbs within a beat is one action. So the action of the beat is written over here, and these other little tools are tools that I'm using to help me do this action. The advantage of tools is it helps you out of a tricky spot when you think, maybe I have a beat change because I do have a clearly different action there. Maybe it's just a tool because the overall action has not changed. Problems that people who are new to doing this, and even people who are not, I do, every time I direct a play, I feel like I'm learning this all over again. Problems is defining too many beats and beating yourself to death, or not really defining enough beats. Obviously, those are the two extremes. So the way to start would be, sometimes you can just get a feeling. You just kind of know when it changes, and you're probably right most of the time. But a way to be really sure is start with your first line, decide what your action is, and then keep reading, am I still doing that action on that line? Am I still doing that action? When it's really clear that your action has changed, then give it a beat change and look back at that beat you just articulated, you just defined, and label it. Just a note about elevator phrases. Define beats and actions are something that every acting teacher and every actor who knows anything about acting knows what that is. This is like, it's the nuts and bolts of being an actor, along with defining your objectives and obstacles. Elevator phrases are kind of my own thing. I have worked with one other acting teacher who used a version of this in working with a monologue, but he called it, actually I got the phrase elevator phrase from him. Sometimes when I first started working with it, I would call it your subtext sentence, but even I've never really worked with an acting teacher who uses these this way. I find them very handy, and students tend to latch onto them sometimes more than they do to actions. The elevator phrase is, within this beat, what are you really saying? What's the subtext underneath what you're saying? Because as we know, characters often do not say what they mean, and they do not mean what they say. That's one of the principles of playwriting. It's not a very strong play if the characters always say what they mean and mean what they say. So what's underneath what you're saying? What's the subtext? Sometimes you have to think about it more deeply. So anyway, so let's look at this. Here's where I have defined the first beat. In this beat, now I have actually defined two types of actions here. I've given all these beats a simple one-word verb, and I've given it another phrase. Different people connect to different things. Sometimes it's easier just to say, hey, connect. But sometimes it's hard to come up with that exact term, verb, and sometimes it's easier or more effective to give it a little more meat. Now, an action phrase, which is very common to come up with. Usually, I should throw in here, usually you might come up with an action phrase for the beat, and these little verbs, this would be like a helper verb, but, whichever way. For my classes, I want you to come up with an action phrase. If you don't come up with one verb per each beat, that's okay, but you definitely will need some tools along the way. Depending on the length of the beat, sometimes you might not have any tools, sometimes you might have quite a few. So in this beat, and I'm not going to read it here and take the time to do that because you can pause this and read it on your own. I've decided that it's to connect. This is the first part of the play, and my super objective is to reconnect with my son. Now, I am not saying that the first beat of your scene will always be the same one as your super objective, but it just happened to be that way. Another way to look at what Dad is doing is embracing the situation. So read this, you'll read this play probably a couple times and get to know it pretty well. He's embracing this situation. And his elevator phrase for this is, let's have fun. Now, the beauty of acting is every actor could come up with different actions. Probably, the more specific you get with like connect, that might not change a lot from actor to actor, but the more interpretive you get with it, like your elevator phrase, every actor might have something different there. I decided, let's have fun is his subtext underneath there. You could come up with many other examples. So another beat change. In this beat, I have decided that my action is to indoctrinate. So I'm telling him a story, and this is a character that I played. So that's what I keep referring to myself. Indoctrinate, because I am telling him a story about something that happened in the past between him and his mother. We are now divorced. So indoctrinate seems to imply, I have an agenda, I have this perspective that I want you to take. The other reason I'm describing these is because I know my handwriting is horrible. Create a personal mythology. So that's a little bit different than indoctrinate. It gives me a little bit more to grab onto, perhaps. I am perhaps, reconfirming for myself that this is the way things happen and this was the reality of the situation. And my elevator phrase is, I'm good enough. That's my thought underneath all of this. If I were to say really what I really meant, and if I were really to pursue my goal of what I want in this, perhaps you could look at, then I would say, all I would say to him is, I'm good enough. Perhaps I'm indoctrinating him to believe that I'm good enough. Perhaps I'm creating a personal mythology to believe that I'm good enough. Maybe as a way to connect with my son or embrace the situation, I'm saying, let's have fun. So all of these kind of connect together. Let me go off on a little tangent here. So every character will do this. So I have my elevator phrase, and then Mark will have his elevator phrase. We could do the whole scene in 1 minute by the whole play, because this is a 10-minute play. We could do the whole play in 1 minute simply by saying our elevator phrase back and forth. So if my elevator phrase is, let's have fun, his here might be, and I'm pulling this out of nowhere, his might be, let's get this over with. And I'm saying, I'm good enough. His elevator phrase here might be, I've heard this before. So, we would do that for every beat. We could go beat by beat and say just our elevator phrase, and we would perform, we would enact all of the emotions of the scene. Everything in this scene would be right there. The only thing that would be missing, obviously, is all the language that the playwright wrote. So, an elevator phrase encapsulates the heart and soul of what's in that beat. And it's a really good way to connect emotionally, as you will see in class. And if you're not in one of my acting classes, we do exercises with these elevator phrases. Simply before everybody's memorized or whatever, we do these elevator phrases back and forth. And it's a good way to charge us up emotionally. You can repeat the elevator phrase over and over until something happens, and then boom, go into the language, and it's magic. So there's that. This beat is a little bit longer than the first one, obviously. Sometimes a beat can be one word. It's usually a little bit more than that. As we'll see later, sometimes there really are beat changes, but they're so small, all I did was give them a verb. I didn't give them an elevator phrase and an action phrase. So along the way, I've got doubt and confirm, dismiss, but they're all a way to indoctrinate him. They're all the tools, that's why they're calling tools from the Practical Handbook. They're tools in order to help me play my action. I may have mentioned this, but the action phrase can often have an implied goal in it, so it fleshes out just one verb a little bit more. I'm going to run out of time here in a minute, but then we'll finish this in part 2. So this is a really short beat, so all I gave it was defend, and I said that's not all in that little beat. I didn't give that an action phrase. What's this? So, okay, beat change, and here's another beat change which I wasn't really sure about. I thought that might be a beat change, but I didn't really commit to it. So again, things evolve in rehearsal. If you're listening to this for an acting class, your job is just to come to class with this stuff ready to work with. So in this beat, probably here to here, I won't take the time to figure out if this is really a beat change or not. Revealing a secret. And the verb I have is charm, because I hope to charm him, because what I'm doing is revealing a secret. I also thought, okay, maybe it's surprise or impress. I thought maybe one of those two. But they're all, kind of versions of charm. I went with charm because I like it better. And my elevator phrase is, you matter to me. Okay, I'm going to pause here because I'm about to run out of time, and I'll continue this in part 2.